again now. Okay, guys, that was fun. I almost finished the whole update of the Michelle Boat trial and I was on mute. So that was good. Anyway, let me try this again. So Michelle Boat took the stand today and she was the only witness the defense put on. The defense rested the case after Michelle took the stand, and tomorrow's going to be closing arguments and then the jury will deliberate. So let's see what happened. Even though it was one witness, the jury was dismissed early. It was a lot to take in, a lot to process, and they have a lot to think about. But Michelle was very tearful the entire time. Sometimes her words were unintelligible. You couldn't even hear them through her crying, and she was really softly spoken at the time. So let's go to the defense calling her to the stand. Michelle Boat takes the stand, and the defense attorney says, let's look about March 2020, that time frame. Were you married at the time? Yes, I was. To who? Nicholas Boat. When did you get married? Now, it's unintelligible. She says January 1st, but it's unintelligible, her year. But based on the time frame, it looks like it's 1997, I believe, that she's saying when they were married. That's what it sounds like, okay? You have children together? Yes. How many? 2. Andrew is 20, Emma's 18. Michelle goes on to say, did you have pets when you lived together at that address? Yes. Rocket and Stormy. 2 dogs. Did you work? Yes. At the hospital. Laundry. What were your duties? And then Michelle goes into, yes, I would fold the laundry, the clean laundry. I would distribute it out to the different departments. I would collect the dirty laundry. I would bring it out to the truck, yada, yada, yada. Okay, where did Nick work? He worked at Vermeer Manufacturing. Okay, let's go back to the day that Nick left. Do you remember that day? Yes. What did you do? I went to work. She said, I'm due at work from 6:30 and I worked till 3:15. What did you do at 3:15 when you got off? I went home and I realized that Nick was gone. So they say, well, do you remember that day? Okay. Yes, I believe it was March 12th. How did you feel when you realized that he left? She says, I was heartbroken and sad, despondent, devastated, destroyed. Like my whole life had walked out the door. There were going to be no more Thanksgivings and no more Christmases without him. He was my whole life. Now, a few days after he left, we heard a phone message. You left. Do you remember that? And Michelle says, no. But you heard that in the court. Was that you? Yes. And that was your message that you left? Yes. So from March 12th to when you left that message, what did your life look like? She says, Michelle says, I cried a lot. I prayed a lot, asking God to bring Nick back home to me. Okay. At first, you were very heartbroken and sad. And were you drinking? She says, yes, I was drinking a lot. I was drunk for a week or 2 after he left. They say, this defense attorney says, did you know he was leaving you for a specific woman when he left you on March 12th? Yes, Michelle says. Did he tell you who? Michelle says, no. No name or anything? Address? No. Nope. What did he say? He said that he just didn't think that he loved me anymore and that he thought he loved her. Did you try to determine who the woman was? Michelle says, I did. When you figured out who she was, and then they kind of trailed off here, and then they went back to, did you ever follow her before May 18th? And here's where I think there's some coaching going on. There's some things that Michelle says, and then she, no, that's wrong. But there's a way that she says it, like she doesn't remember it. And it sounds like there was some coaching, which would be obvious from the defense on what they wanted her to say. But it just, to me, it doesn't sound genuinely her words or her testimony. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. And there's also, I would have thought that the prosecution would have questioned some things more, like we'll get into it, but when she says she dropped the knife on the floor, she doesn't ever say she retrieved the knife from the floor, but we know she did because she said she washed it off and put it under the bathroom sink. She doesn't talk a lot about that. They don't question her about that. I think the prosecution could have questioned her more about certain things, but they didn't. So, but let's see what's going on. Let's go back here. So they say, well, when did you ever follow her before? And why did you follow her? She said, well, I wanted to know where he lived so I could beg for him to come back. I wanted to know he was okay. I was worried about him. I wanted to know where he lived. So I go there and beg for him to come back. And then she said, if I said that was on March 20th last year, does that sound right? Yes. On that day, you followed him to Ottumwa? Yes. On March 22nd, you were admitted to the Spencer Hospital. So she follows Tracy on March 20th. And then on March 22nd, she's admitted to the Spencer Hospital for mental treatment. She's discharged on March 27th. That's 5 days in the mental hospital. So you went home. Yes. Let's turn to May 18th again. Do you remember that day? And here's where it's like, I think that she was told to say something specific because they said, do you remember that day? What is the first thing you remember? She said, letting my dogs out. Oh, that's right. Rocket and Stormy. And then she says, well, then what did you do? And right away, Michelle says, well, I started to make breakfast for myself. No, that's not right. I let the dogs back in. I played with them and then I fed them. I always took care of them first. It just sounds like the defense told her to make sure that she gets that in there somehow. And then the defense attorney said, well, the dogs often insist on that. She said, yes, they do. What did you do then? She said, I started going through some materials. My mother left me when she died. And well, what kind of material was it? She said, it was all different kinds. I was going to make masks for people. So I was looking at what material I could use and what I wanted to give away or get rid of. And then where did you go? She says, well, yes, I left the house to go visit a friend named Hillary. Have you been spending a lot of time with her? She said, yes, I've been spending time with her and talking to her. And again, this is something the prosecution didn't pick up on because the whole thing is that she's so isolated with this pandemic. She has no one to talk to, but here she is saying that she's going to her friend Hillary and speaking with her, but they never really said, well, you weren't so isolated. You know, you had Hillary, you had someone to talk, but they didn't say anything about that. Anyway, she went to Hillary's and then she stayed there. They decided that they were going to have dinner. So then Michelle goes home. Now, when Michelle goes home, they said, well, what did you do? She said, I was trying to figure out what I was going to have for dinner. And I decided to take the last $6 I had and go to Culver's for chicken. Now, I don't know what Culver's is, but I guess it's a place where they are famous for their chicken. It must be fast food. We don't have them around here. They said, did that mean when you say you took your last $6 that you didn't have a lot of money? She said, right. I was PRN at the hospital, and that meant they only called me if they needed me. I had not been getting a full paycheck, and the last day that I worked was the day that Nick left. So I had no paycheck, no food, no bank account. Again, she has no food in the house. And then the defense attorney says, yes, we remember that time. We lived through it too. And it was kind of in the first few months of the pandemic. How did it affect your life? And Michelle says, well, I just didn't have anything. I didn't have money. I didn't have food. I had no one to talk to about my situation. I had no work at the hospital, so I had no money. So, yeah. So the defense attorney says, so you go and you take that last $6 and you're going to go to eat. So what did you do? She said, I got into my car. What kind of car was it? 2004 Cadillac. Okay, that's what you drove? Yes. What route did you take? And they go through her route, and it wasn't just down the road. So you go down to Culver's, and that's by Walmart. Did you notice anything on your drive there? Yes, my husband's pickup was parked at the laundromat. Okay, was there anyone in the truck? No. Was there anyone around the truck? No. She says then she was at Culver's, and the line was so long that she didn't want to wait 20 minutes for chicken. So you went back to the laundromat? Yes. Why? Because I wanted to see. Then they said, what did you do? She said, I went back to the laundromat. Why did you go back to the laundromat? She says, I wanted to see who was driving that pickup. And if it was Nick, I wanted to beg him to come home, and I wanted to see where he was living. So you didn't know where he was living? They asked her. No. On the return trip back by the laundromat, what did you do? She says, I parked there. Okay, you parked there because you wanted to see what was going on? Yes, she said, I wanted to see if it was him or if it's someone else. So they said, well, did you see him? No. What did you see? She said, I saw Tracy haul the laundry to the truck from the laundromat. I watched her. Did she leave? Yes, she said, I watched and I followed her because I wanted to know where he was living. I thought she was going home with the laundry. I assumed that's where she was going, but instead she went to the Burger King that was back down by the Walmart. So she went through the drive-through, and what did you do? I followed her, and what did you do? She didn't go through the drive-through, obviously. She waited. And did you follow her when she left the Burger King? Yes. And what happened? She went to Vermeer Manufacturing and parked there. And what happened then? And then Nick came out and got in the truck and they ate. She assumes the food that she picked up at the Burger King. And then he turned around and he kissed her. And then he kissed her again. And then he got out, went back into work. She's crying through this stuff. Okay. And I followed her, hoping she was going home so I could see where he was living and then beg him to come home. So she stopped at the apartments. And then this is when Michelle realizes that these apartments are the same apartments that her and Nick had lived in 21 years ago when they first started their relationship. So they're trying to say she's so emotional by this because he's living in the very same apartments. She pulls in the alleyway and she parked the truck there. But now remember, she still had her seatbelt on. So what did you do? She says, I wanted to tell her how much I wanted him back and I wanted her to leave him. So I got out of the truck and she goes, I got out of the truck. I'm in the car and I went to talk to her. And I opened the door of the truck and she started hitting me and screaming, calling me a crazy bitch. And did you notice anything? And Michelle says the truck smelled like smoke. And that made her really upset because they stopped smoking. They quit smoking, both her and Nick, in order to save that money to buy that truck. And now she's smelling smoke and she's imagining that it is now Tracy that is smoking in this truck. So what happened? Well, she was hitting me and hitting me and hitting me. And I had my hands up and she's very, she's demonstrating this, like, making it this poor, weak little woman that had her hands up while she's getting hit. But remember, she still has the seatbelt on. She's yelling at me and I just snapped and I snapped. I grabbed that knife and I stabbed her and I dropped the knife. Again, there's nothing, we don't know how to drop the knife, how it got, right? And went around the car, got in and went home. Okay, so why did you have a knife in the car? And she starts crying because my husband was always my protector and I was scared since he left. I was scared of everything. I have a baseball bat behind the front door. I started keeping a knife. Everyone was gone. I'm so scared. So then they call upon State Exhibit 43. Tell me what you see. There's tools there. Why did you have these tools in the car? Remember the hammer and the crowbar. In case someone attacked me. Okay, I didn't know what to do. So they said, so these things were kept on the passenger side of the floor. These were kept for protection. Yes. And you had blue gloves in the car. Why were they in the car? She says they were from work. I would take them from work. They were in the pockets of my smocks and things. And I would just take them in case I had to go to Walmart for the virus. And, did you have gloves at home? Yes. Okay. And then they said there's another blue item. And she said, that's a reusable grocery bag underneath the wallet. What is that? She says they're binoculars in a case. Okay. Because I thought I was going to see something, Tracy or Nick, but I never saw anything. They bring up another exhibit looking at the area between the gear shift and the stereo. She says that's a face mask and hand lotion and stuff like that. They bring up another exhibit that looks like either the center console is listed, they said. She said, yes, what items? There's a towel from work, some promotional thing. There's a CD with music. There is a glove from work. Did you wear these gloves when you went to Walmart and Culver's? Yes, she said it was the virus, the pandemic. So you had a knife in the car. Where in the car was the knife when you pulled up on Tracy? And she says it was on the passenger seat. When you turn to get the knife, hold on one second. This is, I just want to make sure that we're not. Okay. So when you turn to get the knife, they asked her how she did this, like how did she get this knife? And then she said, I don't know. I just turned like this and she demonstrates it. And this is what she says. My eyes were closed. My glasses had fallen off. I couldn't see. Did you have to open the door? She says, I think the window was down. So you just grabbed it? You reached inside and grabbed it? Yeah, I could not see anything. Well, how could you just grab it if you can't even see anything, okay? During the struggle, your glasses fell off? Yes. You said your glasses fell off? Yes. Were you able to find them? Yes. They were on the ground, on the pavement? Yes. Okay, so then they said, where did you look in the pickup? on the floorboard? She said, no, it was on oh no, they said, when you were going there, where was this knife when you were going there? On the floorboard? No, she said it was on the passenger seat. And you stabbed Tracy and you got in the car and you left? And she said, yes. And then they show her a picture of the car and they said, do you see the necklace and the chunks of hair? And this is on the outside of her car. And then the blood stains on the passenger side. Yes. Did you see that on May 18th? And she says, no. Did you look for evidence? No. Why? I was in a panic. I knew I hurt her and I didn't know what to do. What did you do? I went downstairs and I put my clothes in the washer. Is it true that those are the clothes you were wearing when you stabbed Tracy? Yes. Why did you do that? I didn't want that mess on my floor, she said. Then what did you do? I went upstairs and I got in the shower, she says. And I showered and I washed and I cried. And then she heard someone banging on the window. And then she got out of the shower as fast as she could. She washed the knife, put it under the sink, and I put the gloves and towel in the toilet tank. She said that I didn't know what to do. And then I opened the door for the police. Did you leave your purse and wallet in the car? Yes. Do you typically leave it there? No. So the police are knocking. She says, yes. And you go to the door? Yes. She goes, after I got dry and put a robe on. You open the door? Yes. Okay. And then you started to talk to them? Yes. And then they took you to the station to talk? Yes. Did you sit down and talk to them? Yes. And did you tell them that you stabbed Tracy? No. Did you say that you had not seen her in months? Yes. Is that true? No. She says, I lied to the police because I knew I was in trouble. I was so scared. And then she said, do you remember how long you talked to the police? And she said, I see that it's 45 minutes, but I don't remember it being that long. I just knew I needed to talk to a lawyer, but I didn't know what to do. And they said that at no point did you say you stabbed her or that you had seen her. No. Correct. Then the lawyer says, the defense attorney says, in opening statements, I want to clear up that I said you were not a scorned woman, but you did tell police that you were. And she said, yes, because he threw me away like trash. He just did like, I never had his kids or anything. He looked right through me. It was horrible. And then they say, Michelle, when Nick first left, you were angry. Yes. How did you feel? She said, angry and hurt and depressed. Like I didn't have anyone left who loved me. He was the last person who left me. The last person in the world who loved me. Okay. And this, I'm sorry, this is the prosecution now. Okay. Asking when they said, let me just make sure. I just want to make sure. No, I'm sorry. This is the end of the defense. I'm sorry. So she were angry at the last person that loved me. He was the last person who loved me and he left. Last person in the world. She wants to go through this again. When he left you on March 12th, did you start to plot to kill him? No. I never wanted him dead. I wanted him to come home so I could treat him like a king, she said, so I can kiss him, treat him better than before, and give him everything he never had before. I wanted him back. On May 18th, when you left with the money, did you plan to kill Tracy? She said, no, I just wanted chicken from Culver's. And she said, and that was it, no further questions. Excuse me, it's cross-examination. So the prosecutor says, let's start with the things we can agree upon. You knew who Tracy was in March of 2020. Yes, because you looked her up using a website, right? To find info about her, right? Yes. So you used a website called Lookup. Yes. And you learned where she lived. She said no. And she said, I attempted to, but the only address that was listed was in Texas. And then he said, did you forget the conversations you had with her ex-boyfriend online? You found him, right? Yes. And you sent him messages through Facebook. Yes. And you talked with him through most of March, didn't you? I don't remember, she says. I talked a couple of times. The prosecutor says, did you tell him he should try to win Tracy back so that Nick would go back to you? Yes. And on April 13th, you found out that Tracy was living in Oskaloosa. I don't remember. He shows her a copy of the Facebook messages between herself and Curtis, who's the ex-boyfriend, tells her to flip to page 56. She's licking her fingers as she's turning the pages, and to read from the bottom. And then there was an objection. He says, you read silently, I'll read it out loud. Just as he starts, there's an objection from the defense for improper impeachment. So they approach the bench, and then the prosecution says, Your Honor, I thought we had an understanding. They come back. He starts to read it again. There's another objection. And she says, where's the question? The judge says she's going to have the question. Just calm down. So basically what she says is, give her a call. Just don't tell her about me. Saying that, don't tell her it's my husband. She is sneaky. She said she took my husband away, and I'm really lonely too. And then he says, did I read that correctly, ma'am? Yes. You found Tracy's Facebook profile. Yes. You sent her messages. Yes. You threatened her. You were very specific about your threats. Yes. And then he said, you said, you will be seeing my face in your dreams. I will be there in the morning when you open your eyes, and I will be there when you close them at night. Yes. Tell him to go home, or I will be on you soon enough. Yes. And you ended that message with, see you soon. Yes. On May 18th, not the first time you saw Nick and Tracy together, right? You parked behind them at Vermeer before. You said, you got out of the truck that day and you went around and you said, I'm only telling you this once. Give him back. Yes. She said, I also told her I was his wife. And Nick was on the phone with the security from Vermeer. Yes. And you knew you couldn't attack Tracy at Vermeer. It's not a good place because of their security. And she said, I was not going to attack her. I was just scaring her so my husband would come back. And then she was only thinking, and then the prosecutor said, yeah, because she was the only thing standing between you and your husband, right? Let's go back to May 18th. You said you told prior that you had been eating chicken pot pies that you had made all that week. And then she says, yes. And she said, that was the only thing I had in the house besides a frozen ham. Well, she already told him she didn't have food, and that was a lie, right? So he says, you drove all the way to the north and all the way to the west just to get to this Culver's chicken, right? When you go there, 4 cars in the line is too much. And she says, yes. But no, the truth is you saw Tracy in the truck. And she goes, yes. But even though she didn't see Tracy at the time, but they didn't even, she said, okay, whatever. So yes. And you could not let that go. She said, I don't understand. What couldn't I let go? You just saw that truck. Yes, because if my husband was there without her, I wanted to speak to him and beg him to come home, she said. So we saw a video of you driving through Culver's at 7:57 p.m. Is that correct? She said, yes. And then you went and you watched this pickup truck to see who was going to come out. Is that why you had binoculars? She says, I don't remember. So you were prepared for this opportunity? No, they were just in there or whatever. You followed her to Burger King, yes. And you wanted to have a chance to say to Nick to come back home and I'll treat you like a king. Yes, but you knew where he worked. They said, yes. And you knew what shift he worked, yes. And at any given time, you could go to Vermeer and talk to him. No, she said she couldn't do that there. You then pull in Burger King, yes. You did not have to follow her. No, this was your choice, yes. And you waited about 7 minutes there, yes. You made the decision to not get too close to her. She said, I did not want to go through the drive-through. Right, but you didn't park in the lot either, they said. That is correct, because you didn't want to alert Tracy that you were hunting her. She says, I was not hunting her. I was following her. So you waited until she got her food, and during that time, you got out for some reason and you popped the trunk. And then you don't know what you were getting out of the truck. Whether it was knife, gloves, binoculars, excuse me. She says, I don't even remember doing that. Okay. Then you waited some more. And she says, if this is what the video shows, I don't remember any of that. But they said you didn't have to follow her. No, you chose to. Yes. And then you heard, they said all these intersections on the way at any time, you could turn the other way, right? But you follow her all the way to Vermeer Manufacturing. And at any point, you could have turned left or you could have turned right, but you chose not to. You chose to keep following her, right? Yes. And they said then you continue to follow her for about 8 minutes to get from the Walmart area to Vermeer Manufacturing. And she says, if you say so, if you say that's how long it is, then it is. Okay. You arrive at Vermeer at around 7:34 p.m. and you pull in, and you actually thought you were getting too close to her. She goes, no, 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 no. I was actually just straightening the car. But they said, no, you didn't want to be detected, did you? She said, I was only following her. Well, you wanted to beg Nick to come home. When Nick came out, you could have done it then. You could have run up to him. She says, no, no, I didn't want to do it for him at work. You know, that could have repercussions or whatever. I didn't want to disturb him. I didn't want to make it worse for him. So you watched them eating in the truck and you were seething at that point. No, I was heartbroken. And my husband just got into the truck with someone else besides me. You waited for 35 minutes. You sat there and you had patience. You had the discipline to just watch. She said, I didn't want to make it horrible for him. And then you followed Tracy and you watched her pull into 101 Glenwood. And at that time, you were familiar with that area. Yes. You knew that alleyway led only to those apartments. So you knew where he lived. Not exactly, she said. You had to pull up to find out what apartment number. You watched her pull in to her apartment spot. You saw her turn off her car. Yes. And you put your hand and you opened up the door of your car. Yes. That was your choice. You didn't have to get out of your car. No, but I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to tell her that I had no Thanksgivings or Christmas without him. Now, this was at least the third time you wanted to talk to this woman. She says, well, you don't really know. He said, well, you spoke to her on Facebook. And then you confronted her at Vermeer. Yes, she said, crying. So this is the third time. And you brought a knife. No. Do you need a break? No. Okay, so you have your hand on the door handle of your car. You have made a choice to get out of your car. Okay. And it said you took, he went through, you took your left leg and you put it out and then your right leg followed it. And you did this all of your own will, it was your choices, all your choices. Yes, sir. Now, when you went out of your house to go get dinner, did you have your rubber gloves? She goes, yes, I put them on. Okay, so you approached her vehicle almost 1 hour from this point when you first saw Tracy get out of that laundromat. Okay, your statement is that when you walked up, she started hitting you. And she says, she was hitting me. She was hitting me and calling me a crazy bitch. And she says, ma'am, she was seatbelted in. Yes. Is it a fact that if in fact she threw a punch at you, and she said, I didn't say she threw a punch at me. I said she was hitting me. And all you had to do, ma'am, then if she was strapped in was step back, right? I guess so. But you chose to grab a knife. Okay, while she was hitting you in the face and knocked your glasses off, and she was grabbing your face and hitting you, and while she was still seatbelted in, yes. I snapped, yes. You stabbed at her repeatedly. No, I only stabbed her once. And you stabbed her while you were on top of her. No. Well, you had you had a downward angle. She says, I don't know. And you scratched her face and you sliced her right thumb. I don't know. Well, we were having a struggle, a tussle, she said. A fight. I don't know. And what happened? And you stabbed her. Yes, I stabbed her. I snapped and I stabbed her. Okay, but you could have stepped back, right? At that point, you could have stepped back, but you picked up your glasses. No. Didn't you say you picked up your glasses? She goes, well, I dumped her purse everywhere first. I wanted to see if she had cigarettes in it, that she made that smoky smell in the truck. But you knew you had hurt Tracy badly. Yes. So then you probably called 911. No. So then you called somebody for help? No. No. You wiped the blood off your face and you got in your car, right? She goes, I left. They go, you wiped the blood off your face, didn't you? She goes, I just pushed my hair back. And then you went home and you quickly took your clothes off. She said, I knew I was in trouble. I never meant to hurt her. You knew enough to get rid of evidence. I panicked, she said. But in your panic, you knew to do self-preservation. Yes. Where was the knife? under the sink in the bathroom. You took a shower. You're trying to wash away the evidence. The police are at the door. You weren't crying when you answered the door. She said, I was trying to calm down. You went to the police department. You denied any part in this. And then they tell you Tracy has been seriously hurt. And your response is, God works in mysterious ways. Yes, no further questions. And then the defense says, what do we see here? She says, scratches on my face. They show bruises all over her arm that I got in the altercation. And then they read a Facebook contact between you and Tracy. Do you remember Mr. Bull asking you that? The defense says. They hand it to her. That Facebook message that Mr. Bull asked you all about, do you remember what date that actually occurred? No, I don't, Michelle says, and the print is too small to read. March 20th, sound right? Yes. Some discussion about you having an incident where you went to Vermeer to contact Nick and Tracy? Yes. That was a couple of days or so after he left? Yes. And then the prosecution comes back and says about that Facebook message that you sent to Tracy, you also sent her a photo of your face staring at the camera. She said, I'm not very good at technology. If that was sent, that wasn't on purpose. It was an accident. So it was an accident that you sent that to her right after you tell her that you would be on her soon enough. And she says, and they say, if you look at the Facebook messages you sent to Tracy's ex, they go through to the end of April. And she looks, yes, last message, April 24th. Yes, that is what this says. And then they talk about the bruising, those on the arm. Do you know what arm it is? I can't tell. What's the right arm? And is that your dominant arm? Yes. And that is what you would use to grab the knife and stab Tracy? Yes. And then redirect the defense comes up again and says, you got hit from Tracy before you grabbed that knife. Yes. You were trying to get Tracy's ex-boyfriend to get them to reconcile, right? Yes, because he said he still loved her on Facebook. No further questions. And then again, the prosecution comes up and says, you said Tracy was hitting you. Yes, but you could have stepped back. She was seatbelted. Yes, but you did not step back. And instead you reached in the car and you grabbed a knife. Or did you have the knife with you at the whole time? She says, no. So you had time to analyze the situation and make a decision, and you stopped and you grabbed the knife. And she says, no, I snapped. I didn't analyze anything. I was angry and I was hurt. I don't know what else to tell you. It happened so fast. It wasn't that. I wasn't analyzing anything. She was yelling, hitting at me, smoking in the truck we bought together. And then he said, all of that bubbled up, right? She was the person standing between you and your husband. And then she said, in that moment, I snapped and was out of my mind in that moment. I could not see what I grabbed because I had no glasses on. So she's excused, defense rests, and I will have the rest of that for you tomorrow. But I think the prosecution could have said more, and the defense said so. But I am going to go now. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in a little bit. We can discuss this tonight, but I hope that brought you up to speed. And tomorrow, closing arguments and maybe a verdict.